Authorities quickly mount a search and rescue operation, mobilizing planes and boats from Mauritius and South Africa. An aircraft from the US military base in Diego Garcia combs the sea at the first light of dawn, searching for survivors and floating debris. But they're looking in the wrong place. South African Airways Flight 295 was a scheduled international passenger flight between Johannesburg, South Africa and Taipei in Taiwan, with a stopover in Mauritius. At 14:23 on the 28th of November 1987, Flight 295 departed Taipei's Chiang Kai-shek Airport with 140 passengers and 19 crew on board. Helderberg was a 7-year-old Boeing 747-200 Combi. The aircraft's cabin was partitioned into a passenger seating area in the forward 2/3 of the plane and a cargo compartment in the rear third, which allowed people and freight to travel on the main deck. Because of apartheid sanctions against South Africa, the airline wasn't allowed to land in most countries, and it was boycotted by international passengers. The reduced number of passengers forced the airline to adopt the combination configuration of passengers and cargo, which allowed the airline to operate profitably. At 23:49, more than 9 hours into the flight, around 45 minutes before the scheduled arrival in Mauritius, the flight crew reported smoke to Plaisance air traffic control. They then declared an emergency and descended to 14,000 feet. During the conversation with air traffic control, Flight 295 reported its estimated arrival time at 00:30 and declared that it was 65 miles away. Communications between Flight 295 and air traffic control continued for about 15 minutes, and then contact was lost at 4 minutes past midnight. At 00:44, Flight 295 was long overdue and air traffic control formally declared an emergency. Authorities scrambled to mount a search and rescue operation, mobilizing planes and boats from Mauritius and South Africa. The United States also sent an aircraft from Diego Garcia, and they all began combing the sea at the first light of dawn, searching for survivors and floating debris. Nothing was found for 12 hours. As it turns out, the figure of 65 miles provided by the crew was a distance to their next waypoint, not to the airport. Flight 295 had actually been flying much farther out to sea when it crashed than searchers initially believed. On the afternoon of the 28th of November, a volunteer search plane spotted an oil slick and floating debris. When ships reached the scene 9 hours later, they discovered an inflatable escape slide, cabin paneling, furnishings from the plane, scattered pieces of luggage, and a few mangled bodies. Over the next several hours, search crews recovered numerous human remains, but only 8 bodies were found intact. It was clear that none of the 159 people on board could have survived. In order to determine the cause of the accident, the South African government and authorities from South African Airways needed to locate and retrieve the flight data recorders and wreckage from the aircraft. The Helderberg's cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder were equipped with underwater locator beacons, which had a battery lifespan of 30 days and a detection range up to 2 miles. The beacons generate sonic pulses, which help pinpoint the location of the flight recorders using underwater acoustic locator equipment known as pingers. The beacons are automatically activated when immersed in water and are designed to survive an aircraft crash. The South African government launched Operation Resolve, a massive international effort to recover the plane at a cost of millions of dollars. They requested assistance from the US government to locate the aircraft because the US Navy has a reputation after successfully locating the pingers from Air India Flight 182 crash in 1985. In spite of sanctions from the Anti-Apartheid Act of 1986, because of the humanitarian nature of the operation, the US government agreed to assist. On the 3rd of December 1987, the US government signs an agreement with the South African government. The US Navy will conduct the search by focusing on tracking the beacons to locate the wreck. 2 pinger locator systems are kept in stock by the US Navy's principal salvage unit, the Supervisor of Salvage, or SUPSALV. They're used to identify and locate downed military aircraft. A hydrophone is towed by cable behind a ship, and a topside processing display console completes the system. The underwater electronics container and hydrophone are tested to a pressure of 10,000 psi, equivalent to a depth of 6,850 meters, which is sufficient to detect the aircraft's beacons, where it crashed in water between 2,500 and 4,500 meters deep. Under ideal conditions, tests with these locator devices could detect beacon sounds as far as 3,700 meters away. A backup device that the searchers can use to augment the pinger locator system is the side-scan sonar search system, a towed sonar device that records images of objects lying on the seafloor. In order to do the towed pinger locator and side-scan sonar searches, SUPSALV hires Oceaneering International as its primary contractor. Oceaneering is a pioneer in the field of underwater search and recovery, focusing on deep-water operations for government clients around the globe, as well as oil and gas companies. The Space Shuttle Challenger, Air India Flight 182, and KAL Flight 007 have all been found with Oceaneering as the main contractor, completing hundreds of survey missions in shallow and deep water for both military and civilian clients worldwide. On the 4th of December, SUPSALV and Oceaneering personnel depart for Mauritius to meet with the South African Department of Civil Aviation and South African Airways personnel. The search team discussed the plan for the search operation. The team establishes a preliminary search zone by using the information from the position of the floating debris spotted during the initial search mission. They gather meteorological data like the wind direction, weather, and ocean currents from a drift buoy that's launched by a US Navy P-3 Orion aircraft based in Diego Garcia. From the data, the search team marks out a search area about 8 by 21 nautical miles, or 168 square miles, with its center around 19 degrees 10 minutes south and 59 degrees 37 minutes east. South African officials request that the operations plan includes a thorough map of the significant wreckage on the seafloor, the recovery of all data recorders, the aft section of the fuselage, and the horizontal and vertical stabilizer assembly. The South African Navy and commercial ships continue retrieving floating debris from Flight 295 while the search team mobilizes their equipment. Search equipment is flown in from different parts of the world. It passes through customs and is transported across the island to Port Louis, where it's unpacked, assembled, and tested. 2 South African ocean-going salvage tugs, the Volrod Voltimada and the John Ross, are equipped with the search equipment, the pinger locator system, navigation systems, winches, and A-frames. The team make a request to the Sonar, which is a German research vessel operating nearby, to conduct a bathymetric survey of the search area using its sonar survey system called C-beam. A bathymetric survey reveals the topography of the seafloor. The Sonar is also equipped with a video sled that can take pictures of the seafloor at depths up to 6,000 meters. The research vessel Africana, a South African fisheries research vessel, is fitted with a hull-mounted acoustic listening system and takes part in the Phase 1 Pinger search party. To give precise navigation signals for the towed pinger locator system, the search team sets up an Argo navigation chain using shore locations on Mauritius, Rodrigues, and Cocos Island. The Argo system is a medium-range, over-the-horizon system that can triangulate the position of the search vessel within a 4.5-meter radius at ranges up to 400 nautical miles during the day. But the Argo system's effective range is reduced to 150 nautical miles at night because of interference from radio waves called skywave. For some reason, full-strength radio waves are stronger at night. In any event, at night, the search area is outside the range of the Rodrigues and Cocos Island locations, and so the system is only operational for about 18 hours every day. The GPS satellite positioning and Magnavox transit satellite navigation systems are used as a backup by the search team. But GPS in 1987 is only available part-time, and the Magnavox transit equipment only updates every 1.5 hours. GPS became fully operational 24 hours a day in 1993. On the 11th of December, the Volrad Voltimator begins its hunt and the John Ross joins the following day. The two pinger locator systems are towed at a speed of 2.5 to 3 knots, in depths ranging between 1,460 and 1,950 meters, with a lane spacing of 1 mile, which gives 100% overlap for the two paths. The research vessel Sonar starts its hydrographic mapping of the area. On the 17th of December, the Africana joins the search using its hull-mounted sonar. On the 24th of December, Volrad Voltimator's pinger locator system gets stuck over a submerged mountaintop in an unexplored area. The pinger locator, along with more than 3,800 meters of cable, are lost. The Volrad Voltimator is forced to abandon the search and return to port the following day. Although a number of potential sound sources are detected, none of them are identified as pinger signals. During this phase, the three ships are able to cover a combined area of 1,005 square miles. On the 2nd of January 1988, more than 30 days after Flight 295 is lost, the search team ends Phase 1 under the assumption that the pinger's batteries have already run out. The search team moves on to Phase 2 of their plan using a side-scan sonar to look for the wreck. The sonar system called the Klein Smartfish is deployed. It uses dual-frequency sonar to produce detailed images of the seafloor. A hydraulically powered A-frame is used to launch and recover 9,000 meters of tow cable. The search vessels used for the pinger locator in Phase 1 can't sustain low search speeds and don't have the deck space to take the sonar A-frame handling system and the deep ocean winch, so they're replaced by another ship. A 65-meter supply vessel, the Omega 801, with a huge open deck and variable pitch propellers for slow speeds, is chartered to act as the sonar search platform. To maintain constant position accuracy, a geolock system replaces the Argo navigation system. The geolock system has a range over 600 miles and functions in a low-frequency band. The skywave interference that prevents the Argo system from operating 24 hours a day doesn't affect this system. On the 22nd of January, the search team leaves port for the main search area and arrives the next morning. The sonar fish can't be launched because of strong winds and choppy seas from a nearby tropical depression. The team used this time to lock in and calibrate the geolock navigation system. The Sonar's seafloor survey results are used to refine the main search area. During one video run, Sonar spotted newspapers and other pieces of mail. The location aligns with the flight path, it follows the estimated drift of debris in the currents, and matches the aircraft's anticipated impact point on the seafloor. This data is used to narrow the focus of the Phase 2 sonar search to a high probability area about 4 by 10 miles. The search team also used the seafloor map, which provides a precise image of the direction and gradient of the seafloor to determine the most effective and safest path to run their search lines. By Sunday evening on the 24th of January, the weather is calm enough to launch the sonar fish and run the first line just after midnight. The search team follow a 10 nautical mile grid line in a westerly direction just above the seafloor to capture high-resolution images. The sonar fish is less likely to snag the seafloor running downhill. It's not easy to tow a sonar fish 45 meters off the bottom in 4,500 meters of water at the end of a 9,000 meter wire. The first search line is a relatively flat location to help the operators familiarize themselves with system controls and how it responds before tackling the more difficult central portion of the area where the aircraft wreckage is thought to be located. The central portion of the seafloor map shows a rugged environment with numerous peaks rising off the seabed. The lane spacing is spaced at 300 meters to give complete coverage, especially in rough and deep terrain. When running the second search line, the sonar detects a promising signal. Over the course of the following 2 days, multiple runs verify the pattern of plane wreckage spread over 1,000 meters, showing distinctive parts of a broken 747. On the 29th of January 1988, sonar scans reveal 2 distinct debris fields lying on the seafloor around 121 nautical miles northeast of Mauritius. At 4,400 meters below the waterline, the debris field is deeper than the Titanic. The next day, deep ocean transponders are deployed to mark targets recorded by the side-scan sonar. Operators identify particular wreckage portions during the course of the following week using short-range sonar frequencies for improved resolution. The largest piece is roughly 40 by 5 meters. From east to west of the accident site, there's rocky underwater terrain with mountains rising between 700 and 1,500 meters above the sea floor. At the site itself, the bottom is flat and featureless, which helps the search team map the area and fly the towfish at the low altitude needed for the high-resolution sonar imaging. On the 2nd of February, the team finish mapping the debris field and turn over their work in preparation for the last phase, the recovery of the flight data recorders and important sections of the aircraft. Before recovering high-interest items, the debris field needs to be thoroughly photographed and documented. This phase is a commercial venture. The US Navy's Subsalv continue to advise the South African government and South African Airways. They even leave a representative on scene throughout the recovery phase. On the 9th of May 1988, the South African government award the salvage contract to Eastport International Inc. because of its experience in recovering aircraft wreckage, particularly from the Space Shuttle Challenger and Air India Flight 182. Eastport International starts constructing a customized ROV, the Roy Gemini. It's designed to create photo mapping and complete the salvage work. The Roy Gemini can descend to 6,100 meters below the waterline. It can maneuver against a strong underwater current at the end of almost 3 miles of umbilical, thanks to its 80 horsepower thrusters. The umbilical contains the power lines to supply lights and cameras, control lines to operate the ROV, multiple sonars and manipulator arms, and 8 fiber optic cables for communications and data transfer for multiple photo and video systems. The ROV is launched and recovered by the umbilical. A Swedish-registered offshore maintenance and diving vessel, motor vessel Stena Workhorse, is used as the support vessel for Gemini. The ship has sufficient deck space for the ROV, recovery equipment, and space to take debris from the plane on board. It has facilities for up to 40 personnel and stores for extended periods at sea. On the 22nd of September, after 4 months of intensive preparation to assemble and mobilize the salvage equipment, Stena Workhorse departs for the recovery operation. Specialists from the Federal Aviation Administration, National Transport Safety Board, and the Boeing Company join the recovery party as consultants. The success of the recovery operation depends on accurate underwater and surface navigation positioning. Stena Workhorse is equipped with a dynamic positioning system which allows the vessel to maintain a fixed position above the recovery site, even during stormy weather. The dynamic positioning system operates the ship's thrusters using computer control to compensate for the action of wind and waves. The subsea navigation relies on the 3 deep ocean transponders previously placed on the sea floor, which forms a triangular grid covering the debris field. The transponders are tracked using an acoustic tracking system. Surface navigation relies on GPS to provide the precise coordinates at the surface. Since GPS coverage is only available for about 5 hours a day, the Magnavox Transit satellite system backs up the GPS. Both the surface and subsea position data are combined into Stena Workhorse's integrated navigation system, AllNav. On the 5th of October, the seafloor navigation grid is operational, and the Stena Workhorse updates its AllNav system, which provides continuous and precise ship and ROV positioning information. The plan is to survey the entire debris field with Gemini's cameras before retrieving any aircraft wreckage, except the data recorders, which will be recovered as soon as they're found. As the photo mapping gets underway, the side scan sonar shows that the aircraft broke into thousands of pieces on impact, creating a very complex debris field. Because of the complexity of tracking the scattered parts, the recovery team decides to immediately recover any wreckage encountered during photo mapping. When technical experts are satisfied with the video documentation, Gemini recovers the target and moves on to the next. On the 8th of October, 3 days into the operation, the ROV's fiber optic cable is severed. The recovery team suspend the operation until they can replace the cable. On the 6th of November, after almost a month waiting for a replacement, the team decide to shorten the umbilical to where it was severed and use it as is so they can get back to work. As the recovery phase continues, the team runs into issues with navigation accuracy. Noise from the ship's engine interferes with the acoustic signals used for the seafloor navigation. In the strong winds and high seas, the engines are working harder, creating more noise interference. The team turn off a number of machines, which reduces the interference, but also makes it harder to maintain their position. On a number of occasions, Stena Workhorse moves outside the transponder's range. The team installs 3 more transponders close to the debris field to increase the navigation data and positioning accuracy for the ship and the ROV. On the 22nd of November, the Gemini ROV locates Helderberg's wreckage at 4,450 meters and starts mapping the debris with photo and video. Gemini also has intricate rigging to recover selected aircraft debris. Manipulator arms and lift lines attached to its frame can raise debris up to 455 kilograms, straight from the seafloor. Heavier objects are lifted using a reel-mounted lift line from the ship instead of the ROV to prevent stress and damage to the umbilical. Wire rope straps are passed through a strong point on the object and shackled onto the lift line. Even with the best equipment and highly skilled ROV pilots, at least 2 significant pieces of wreckage are dropped during the lifting process. On the 1st of January 1989, more than a year after the incident, Gemini finally finds and recovers the cockpit voice recorder, which helps investigators understand what went wrong. On the 7th of March, after mapping the debris field and recovering parts from the aircraft, the 5-month salvage operation came to an end. The South African Airways Flight 295 search and recovery operation was carried out in a remote location with combinations of equipment that had never been used before. The successful completion of the recovery operation by a multinational, multi-agency team is one of the deepest aircraft recoveries ever documented. Although the voice recorder was found, the flight data recorder wasn't recovered, so investigators focused their efforts on the cockpit voice recorder. But the black box was in bad shape. After more than a year at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, the first 28 minutes of the tape were damaged beyond recognition. But the last 100 seconds were clear and captured the precise moment the emergency started. Evaluation of the wreckage that was brought to the surface created a clearer picture of the accident. A fire started in a pallet and spread through the main deck cargo hold behind the passenger compartment. The engines cut out before impact, and the plane most likely hit the water while banked 90 degrees to the left. The cause of the fire was never identified, but some reports suggest it could have been ammonium perchlorate, which was being brought into South Africa to be used in military rocket propellants. Despite the fact that there were many unanswered questions about the incident, investigators made a number of crucial recommendations. Most importantly, they questioned whether the Boeing 747 combination with cargo and passengers on the same deck was a safe design. The 747 Combi was grounded globally when the US Federal Aviation Administration issued an airworthiness regulation that required significant modifications. But the majority of operators just stopped using the 747 Combi. Investigators also suggested increasing the length of cockpit voice recordings from 30 minutes to 1 hour, which has since increased to 2 hours. The search and recovery operation cost the South African government around $11 million, including the $280 million plane. That's the equivalent of a $704 million loss in today's money. For more salvage operations, click the video on screen now.